let's talk.
That's true.
Must we talk about the Knicks? Yeah, we must. Must we talk about the Nets? Oh, my God. Game that was on national television and national broadcast television, in case anybody still uses an antenna. Yes, the Brooklyn Nets taking on the Boston Celtics team that the Nets should be at this point in the season.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe how hot the Boston Celtics have been as of late.
It's true, yeah. This Boston team the last 3 weeks have really gone on a roll. And it's funny enough because, Usi Adokenwa was former Nets coach last year, the assistant coach, and signed on when Brad Stevens became the front office manager. So, he's really, I think he struggled early on in the season, but he's really got this Boston team in shape the past really 3 weeks to a month. They've been on a huge roll, and they looked really strong. And today's game, I think, showed it just because, A, they never really gave up. Well, they were down for a lot of it in the first half. But B, Jason Tatum had the game of his life.
54 points.
16 of 30 shooting, including 8 threes. And it helped when the Nets defense imploded again and, kept him open in transition. You giving him, 5-6 walk-in threes, giving him open layups. This Nets team defense was held together by like a used tissue. Just sucked.
But there we go. Okay, that's been the knock on the Nets all year, by the way. Everybody knows that.
But they're doing better 2 weeks ago when they got Drummond, and now it's like they just completely forgot just how many times they let Boston players just stroll on into the paint, gets buckets.
Matador defense.
Yeah.
They showed Steve Nash talking to his team just prior to the game. Hey, we finally got everybody together. Durant's back in the lineup. Right. Kyrie's here. We're a team again. Let's play like it. Well, nice try.
I thought they played like it in the first half, and a lot of it obviously was just Kevin Durant being Kevin Durant, and that's also been, I think, the team's biggest issue was that with he takes over a game. There's no question about that, but I think just with how much he takes it over. Just that the other guys aren't able to follow his lead, and that's been a big problem to where, it's not like Jason Tatum. Tatum played well, but Jaylen Brown also had a good game as well, and he was essentially the one that got the insurance bucket when he hit that big three with 40 seconds to go, put him up 6, I believe, 120, 114, something like that. But the Nets, they outside of Durant, they really struggled to get any momentum going, and Irving I think stepped it up in the second half as well because he kept the Nets involved in the contest. But outside of those two, it's the guys who were hot last week, Curry, Aldridge, just not there. And it doesn't help too losing Cam Thomas in the middle of the game.
It is, first of all, this Nets season for first of all, Net fans themselves and any fan of the New York market that was hoping that we'd have at least one decent NBA team. First of all, a 10-game losing streak was a killer, but the fact that this Nets team has basically been what it's been since they first made the deals for Durant, for Harden, for Kyrie Irving, and so on and so forth, a team that looks great on paper, but can never get the whole lineup together at the same time, and even when they do, they don't play long enough to really make an impact. There's still plenty of time left in the season, but here's the problem. Right now, they're in the 9. Okay, as you know, the 7, 8, 9, 10 are in a play-in bracket, but the Wizards are only 2 games out.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and the Knicks are 6 games out, so it's a bit of a drop-off, and they've lost 7 in a row. And
we're going to get to that in a minute as well. But that's the blessing and the curse for the Nets right now, because they're the 9. But really, just looking at the 3 seed in Milwaukee all the way down to that 11 seed in the Wizards, it is 10 games, which is a lot, but because there's still a good part of the season left, it's really not as much as it is the 1 seed in the Heat, where they're 43 and 22, and the Nets, who are 11 games behind, and the Hawks as well with them. There's still, I think the Nets could move up and be a top 4 seed. The problem is just that, and they've really been struggling, and with how tight the race is, you're going to have a good team ultimately looking out because of how competitive seeds 1 through 11 are with the Wizards. And they're under 500, but they've been on a roll. They went 5-5 or their last 10, and they're starting to climb back into it. And they're only, I believe, 2 games behind the Hawks and the Nets. And with how Brooklyn's been playing, losing their last 4 games, it sure feels like they're on their way out and Washington's on their way in.
Well, that's the other thing. Trends. I mean, the Nets had that great first half, and then they,
That's
of
their
course,
trend.
the 10-game losing streak, and
Yep.
then they get all their players back. They get Durant back from injury, which is probably one of the main reasons they won. They lost 10 in a row. But the
Yeah.
important thing here is that you were hoping, and yes, Steve Nash was saying it, that once they get the band back together, that they'll start rattling off a few wins. And that's what they need to do. They need to get hot, not win one, lose one. Win one, lose one puts you at 32 and 33. Okay,
Yeah. And
they need to get on a real roll, like the Celtics
exactly.
have.
Yeah, and it's fitting that, as you said, they're hot in the first half and they've been cold in the second half, because that really describes, I think, how they play game by game. Well, they'll have a good first half. And I mean, I go back to the game against Toronto on Tuesday. They lost 109-108. They had a good first half, and they were outscored 28-19 I forgot it was the fourth quarter or in the second half. I think it was the fourth quarter alone, to bring Toronto back into the contest.
Yeah, and these are teams that are that's the great thing about the Eastern Conference is that, you know what? And yes, the Nets, because of their good first half, have had good games against every team in the Eastern Conference that they faced, every single team. Okay, so you know they're capable of beating them, and you know they're capable of putting together wins down the stretch.
And the one that really infuriated me, Matt, was Thursday, because they were up 16 against Miami with,
there you go.
I think it was about 16 left to go, or maybe it was even less than that. But they collapsed, and they tried to come back into the end. They got a 10-0 run. Bruce Brown hit a couple clutch threes, final minutes, but the Heat were able to hang on, and they got a great squad as well. They're 22-7 at home, so they're a tough team to beat regardless. But this Nets team just doesn't know. Well, both New York teams, I think, really struggle in this issue where they just don't know how to hold on to leads. And I hope I'm not jinxing the Knicks, because they're up 61-42 right now against LA, the Clippers. But these teams, they just implode on themselves, and it's like the offense just shuts down. The defense allows the opposing offenses to do whatever they want, and they're just out of sync, and it's terrible.
Well, fortunately for the New York Knicks, all losing streaks eventually end, and all winning streaks do too. But they've lost 7 in a row going into this game that's on live right now.
Yeah. They look real good today, which is the crazy part. They have not looked good for most of the week.
Yeah, well, they finally put a game together. That's really nice. But another team that hung the carrot out last year, thought they were going to I guess parlay that success into even more success this year, and it just has not happened.
No, there's several issues for that. I think one is they're also dealing with injuries, right? Derrick Rose, of that ankle surgery, he's due to come back in a week, I believe. Nerlens Noel, Cameron Grimes were out. We talked about Kemba Walker before. He's done for the season. Losing Obi Toppin, I think, hurts. He had a left hamstring strain, so he missed, I think, last game or the game before that. But losing him hurts because he was one of their more explosive bench pieces. But the problem is also just the lineup Thibodeau's throwing out there, because he's content with keeping a guy like Toppin on the bench. And Evan Fournier, God bless him, when he's not shooting threes off the wing, he's just a waste of space. To me, it feels like unless he's playing against Boston, he just has nothing going on. Take that game against Philly on Wednesday. He only had 6 points and had no defensive pressure up against some of the guards, against Harden in his return to New York. And sorry, that was in Philadelphia, but I think this was his debut. And Harden and Embiid just really balled out and just crushed the Knicks, who also gave up a 16-point lead. Matt.
Well, this is the thing about guys who can shoot and not do much else. There is a place for them on a bench. And I say on a bench because, first of all, you don't want to be spending major minutes in there, because what you want them to do is to give you a shot when you need one. And that's when you put them in there. Okay? And you set a place for them and do things like that. And you try to get them some isolation, get them open. But you don't want them there all the time. And it's up to a coach to be able to. I mean, the perfect example, the classic example, is Robert Horry. Okay, known for nothing else other than big shots, but also playing for coaches who knew how to set him up, who knew where to put him in, where they needed him, and when they did, he came through.
Yeah, I think this Knicks team's had a lot of issues, and the lineups I think been the biggest. Part of it does fall on Thibodeau because he's rolling out these lineups where he probably should be relying on the younger guys more, and he really hasn't been doing it that much. I feel like you're seeing it a bit more now, and you're seeing it in this game for sure. The Knicks are up by 21 with 8:53 left to go in the third. But guys like Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett, for the most part, are play good games most of the time. But as guys like Evan Fournier is getting a lot of the starting time, Alec Burks, and it's just not working. For this Knicks team, and not only that, but I think even the stars. Randall had a great year last year, but there's rumors going on. You saw it in the Post that Knicks are concerned with the psyche of Julius Randle because he didn't come into training camp in the same shape he was in last season, and just the way he's been playing overall, he got ejected in the prior game. It's been cause for concern because he's just not at that level he was at last year. And definitely through the shot selection, because it seems like he shoots himself and the Knicks out of games sometimes, shots he takes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you'd agree with that, Matt.
Yeah, I definitely do. And when it comes to mental health issues, that's frustrating because you do need somebody specialized to look into that. That's where it gets very, very tricky. Now, here's an opportunity, though, for these New York Knicks. They are on a western swing. 8:12 left in the third quarter. Lead the Clippers 71-48.
RJ Barrett's playing a good game. 20 points so far. 21 points, actually.
Okay, but what's he going to do when they go up north to Sacramento? Sacramento is a team that's dead in the water as well. I'm not saying the Knicks are dead in the water because they are. They can make up a 6-game deficit to get into the play-in part of the playoff format.
I don't know, Matt.
Theoretically,
they're 1-9 They're 1-9 in their last. You're right, theoretically. You're right, theoretically, but they are 17 games out of first, and they're 14 games out of third. So,
but they're only 6 games out of the 10.
That is also true, but the Hawks have been looking good the past couple games. The Wizards, I said, on a roll. Honestly, to me, it'd be the Nets just continuing to flounder, going on another 10-game losing streak, which I don't put past them, because of how inept they've been playing half the time.
Yeah.
And the Knicks going on a roll.
But here's where it gets tricky, because then they go to Dallas, then they go to Memphis, and then they go to Brooklyn before they're finally back home against Portland on the 16th. So that's going to be quite a gauntlet. And like I said, if they end the losing streak tonight in convincing fashion, you like their chances a little bit better. And if they come out of that road trip with a reasonable record, you like their chances. Maybe they can make up some ground. Then, okay, you get your hopes up, and of course, what being a fan is like. It is all about getting your hopes up. But yeah, that's what it does not. This is not going to be an easy road trip. Matter of fact, the easy part of the road trip is right around now, because if you do get past the Clippers, who are in the playoffs right now, if the season ended today, but they're in the play-in, but they're only 4 games over 500. That's a good confidence booster, and also breaks you out of the funk, because honestly, they played Phoenix down to a point.
Yeah, that was the other infuriating thing too. That went down to the wire, and they lost it off. I think it was a buzzer beater by Cam Johnson.
Yeah, that was murder.
And the problem, Cam Johnson had a career high 38 points. 21 of those came in the fourth. He had 9 threes, but New York just wasn't pressuring him.
Well, they left the other thing too, that
wide open on the wing time after time, and they let the Phoenix get back in the game, Matt.
Not only that, but when they were getting fouled and missing free throws, if they iced a couple of those free throws, if they iced one free throw, they would have put the game in overtime instead of it ending up in a loss. And number 2, they're missing crucial free throws down the stretch, which could have sealed the game for them.
Yeah. Not only that, too, I think. Exactly that. It's just free throws, but it's just missing, key shots.
It's like they didn't care. Like, this is the best team in the NBA. Come on, you had a chance of beating them at home.
Yeah,
and I even looked at. Let's see. Let me just take a quick look at Phoenix's record at home.
Let me tell you, Matt. The Suns are 51-13 and
Yeah.
28-7 at home.
Yeah. So they
It's
actually lose
literally
more at home than they do on the road. Their road
Yes.
record is 23-6.
23 and
Talking about
6.
balance.
Yeah, they lost today, so that
Yeah.
adds to that. But yeah, this Phoenix team is something out of a video game. Just how good they've been, and it's funny because in the NBA, the top seeds, really to me, I feel like they usually don't win. You know, it's usually like a 2 or 3 seed.
It's almost like a
But-
booby prize.
Exactly right. It's like the top seeds just always find. I don't want to say always. More often than not, find a way to just get upset, whether it's in the conference finals or the finals itself.
Well,
But
you
this
know what?
Suns team has looked unbeatable for a lot of the season.
There are a lot of theories behind it, and they always get proven wrong by somebody. But the one theory about and this happens in the NHL too, like the President's Trophy, which of course goes to the best overall record, gets you home ice throughout the playoffs, which is good. The players don't even touch it because it's taboo to touch it. Because if they touch it, that's all they're going to get. They won't get the cup. If you take a look,
Right.
Since that trophy's been, I think it was introduced in the '80s. Since then, almost close to half the time, the President's Cup trophy winner failed to win the Stanley Cup. So it's the same thing here when it comes to, and also comes to, I mean, even in baseball, when you win the division by a large margin, and you're basically, you're resting people in the final week of the season, and you're cruising, and everybody wonders, will you be ready for the playoffs? Now, of course, some years you are, some years you aren't, and then if they're not, they go 2 rounds and out. They'll say, well, they ran away with the division, and they weren't playing in the final month of the season, whatever.
Yeah,
It all comes down to who's hot at the right time,
Exactly.
and whether you can wake up from your slumber and get hot. Now, if
Right.
you're good enough to have
saw-
run away with the division, and here's the funny thing, okay, they're only up eight games in the Western Conference between Golden State and Memphis, despite winning 80% of their games.
right.
So even that's not a given, but they still have to play.
Yeah, and we're looking to an NBA where for the last 5 years, the number 1 seed has lost in 3 of them lost in the conference finals or in conference play. The 15-16 Warriors, obviously, they lost to the Cavs in that Game 7. It was a Warriors team that they were a 1 seed and they beat the Cavs 4-1. But yeah, outside of that, a 1 seed doesn't mean as much here as opposed to other sports like hockey, which we're going to get into.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, they are 6-4 in their division.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because they have the Warriors, they have the Clippers, the Lakers in their
It is
division.
stacked. Well, the Lakers have been struggling.
Well,
Starting
they're
to get
3-10. They've been
but
sticking. They
Yeah.
look like the Knicks these days.
really, their big problem is on the road. They
By
just
the
can't seem to get
way,
together.
There was this quote that was being circulated that was attributed to LeBron James. I want to find out if it was actually proven true or not. About him saying that he wishes there were no fans in the stands because because they were a distraction or something like that, and they took him out of his game or some silly
I
thing.
don't think. No, I don't think
I
that's,
can't
that's a real
believe
quote for
that.
him.
Number one.
I don't think that's a real quote for him. I don't think that's a real quote.
Oh God, because look,
He was a guy who he refused to play with no fans when the pandemic first started.
right, he hated it.
Right.
And-
I don't. Yeah.
And he didn't like the opposing fans heckling. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, I said, I can run down the list of players. I still remember Reggie Miller. Because not only did Reggie Miller like driving daggers into the hearts of Knicks fans, especially Spike Lee. He loved sticking it to Spike. But I remember him in post-game press conferences after doing it and just relishing it. This is at the Garden.
Yep.
And it's like, I hit the shot. It's like, quiet. He loved shutting them up. He loved, and it was like it was a respectful hate.
Yeah.
It's like, the Knicks fans.
It's what Trae Young has now. I think, where they respect his game, but it's you got to have a great performance to shut him up, and Trae Young's been doing that.
Yeah,
and it's one of the reasons why obviously the Hawks won last year. And they're trying to get a playoff seed. They're currently in 10th, half a game behind the Nets.
And so look what Michael Jordan used to do to the Knicks.
Oh, yes.
Okay? And, again, Knicks fans hated him. They had to respect him, but they hated him. because of what the sneaker game. Finds a pair of old original model Air Jordans in his closet, and his feet have grown a little bit, so they're tight on him, and also they're stiff because leather dries out over time.
Right.
And and he scores like 57 points.
Yep, it's insane.
I was at that game too, and it was a great story. He said, did they make this up? They had to have made this up.
A lot of those stories seem fake.
But he was wearing old Air Jordans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Air Jordan at the time was just an Air Force One with Bulls colors.
Yeah, now it's a whole brand. But I was going to say, and very well, it's tough to shut the Garden. But at least in the Knicks, it's been happening a lot. But at least for the Rangers, they've been on a roll.
I'll tell you something. Going to a Ranger game, I think you've been to a couple yourself.
Yes.
I'm obviously an Islander fan, but I definitely catch the vibe. That is a Garden vibe that's going on right now. It's not happening for the Knicks, but definitely happening for the Rangers. And Chris Kreider, by the way, talk about one of the hottest players in the league right now. I think he scored a couple of goals today, did he not?
2 goals tonight, 4-1 win over the Jets. Rangers look good this week. They swept their contest, beating St. Louis Thursday, the Devils on Friday, and obviously today's game. Kreider is third in scoring behind Draisaitl and Matthews.
Yeah,
if you told me that before the start of the season, I would have called you not only a liar, but you're probably on drugs. So the fact that this is a real stat
the fact
is
that
ridiculous.
He's that high up in the league. I mean, everybody usually expects him to be a top scorer on the team, but not in the league.
Chris Kreider, let me tell you, 37 goals on the season, 19 of those off power play.
That is murder. But I'll tell you something else. Shesterkin again, 44.
Yeah.
44
honestly,
shots.
Let me say, watching that game, it was interesting because, the Jets took 44 shots. It didn't really feel like it because they're taking a lot. They weren't taking a lot of high quality shots. I thought they were easy for Shesterkin to get to, and the Rangers weren't really pressing because they led. Especially they scored two minutes in. Goodrow converted a nice goal mouth feed from Trouba 2 minutes in, and once they got the 2-0 lead when Kreider scored his first of the game, they kind of just relaxed for the rest of it, and they weren't really trying too hard. I think defensively they gave Winnipeg a lot of opportunities, but Winnipeg, besides getting an extra man advantage, they couldn't really convert goals.
By the way, you talk about Kreider in terms of goals, and of course he is tied with Leon Draisaitl with 38, so tied for second. And Austin Matthews leads with 39.
There you go.
Points, on the other hand, he's a little bit further down, but regardless, Zibanejad racks up all the assists, but Shesterkin leads the NHL in goals against average.
He's Vesna, and you can argue hard as well. It's just this dude.
I've already made my argument, and also leads in save percentage.
Yeah,
and the only thing he doesn't lead in shutouts. Jacob Markstrom in Calgary does.
It's tough. It's tough too because Rangers got a good first defense with Lindgren and Fox, right? I think it's Miller and Fox, and then second with Lindgren and Trouba. But their third defense is a real black hole, and that's not the same thing what the conversation should be for the Rangers. They got a lot of money, 32 in cap space. They got players they relied on. Offensively, Rooney's out, Kaku's out for the next couple of weeks. Defensively, obviously, there's a lot of inexperience there, especially in that third defense. It's time for them to make some moves and really get guys who, even if it's a year rental, just to get them in an even better state come playoff time. Because, Shesterkin honestly has been robbed of some shutouts because of lackluster defense. That Capitals game, for example, they won 4-1, and just defense couldn't hold through for 60 minutes,
Well, here's the thing. Right now, they're second in the Metropolitan Division, and in the overall, in the Eastern Conference, they're second as well. With 77 points, that would actually make them third, I believe.
It's tied.
Third or fourth, regardless.
Third for sure.
He's second. They're second in the division, which matters most. They're tied with Pittsburgh, so they have a pretty good shot at a deep run here. So, because of that, you're in win now mode. You're clearly in win now mode.
Yeah, I think you have to. You got to remember this: the Rangers with first you have an inexperienced GM in Drury who he made some surprising moves, but hey, they've worked out too. Gotta respect it. But also, you gotta remember this is a Dolan run team, Matt, and we see how those end up.
Well, yeah, well, hey, they did
That's
get to the final back in 2014 with Henry
that is true.
Lundqvist.
That is true. And then immediately the year after, they cough up a number 1 seed to Tampa Bay, and it was all downhill up until this year. But
Yep.
regardless, outside of that, it's still they still need, I think, more, because you go back to that game on Thursday. The Rangers got out to a good start. Lafreniere, he's really been stepping up with Kakko gone, and on that first line, Lafreniere's he's looking like the first overall draft pick now, and that's big for them, especially approaching the playoffs. But Rangers look good to start the game. Then they give up 3 goals in about 2 minutes, 14 seconds. And the Rangers came back, were able to get a win. That was their 18th comeback win, which I think leads the NHL. But, they're at a point to where they need to start controlling the game more, and I think really start proving that, they are a top seed, because they're playing a lot of catching up.
You won't survive a playoff game if that happens.
Exactly.
So about Wednesday against St. Louis, I was there.
Yeah.
And that was, fortunately, like I said, it was about to look like, okay, they're playing a really good team out of the Western Conference, and maybe they're not that good, but they did manage to pull it out. You don't want to be depending on that in a playoff scenario.
No,
because
they've shown they haven't, as recently as 2020 in the bubble, where in the Hurricanes they dominate against them in the regular season. Come bubble time, they're just a no-show, and they're playing from behind the entire time, and they can't catch up.
Right. Now, for the Hurricanes, my God, they've been absolutely dominant the entire year here.
Yep.
Leading in just about every category.
Yeah, they're a phenomenal team. Great everywhere, offensively. Their goal differential of 57 is phenomenal. And they're looking like the best team in Metro for sure, living up. One of the best teams in the league, along with Tampa, Florida, the Leafs in the East, and obviously the Avs, who are phenomenal as well. 85 points already.
Well, yes, because it's 11:53, we do have to mention the Islanders. And the Islanders, look, because of the hockey and basketball seasons having half as many games as a baseball season, any 10-game stretch, a bad 10-game stretch in particular, can kill your entire season. And that first of all, the long road trip that led up to the opening of UBS Arena was number 1, but number 2, losing 10 in a row was a killer. And that the Islanders, they've pretty much erased that deficit. The only problem is that just puts them, 19 points out of the second wild card.
Yeah, you essentially got to win out now if you're there. And it's not
only just win now, but win consistently.
Yeah.
Because
and you're going up
one step forward, one step back with these guys.
Yeah. And you're going up against playoff contenders in the Avalanche tomorrow. You have Anaheim on Sunday, the Capitals on next Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day against the Rangers.
The Avalanche are the
Dallas,
best team in the NHL.
Yeah.
They're 2 points ahead of Carolina. They're the President's Trophy winner right now. The season ended today.
Yeah, and they've already beaten the Islanders as well pretty recently. So, they know each other very well. Obviously, the Avs have the upper hand.
That is where it gets absolutely crazy with, that 10. First of all, the Islanders have been about that. Before Barry Trotz took over, they would always have that bad stretch in November that they would never really be able to recover from. The record after that would be respectable, but that that valley they'd fall into in November would either keep them out of the playoff spot or put them in a low seed.
Yeah.
They have, have they necessarily lapsed in terms of their defensive capability? No. But their scoring differential is minus 14, and that's not going to get you anything.
I think they have lapsed defensively. I think just when Chara was playing, he was not doing them any favors, and he's out now, at least till tomorrow. But you're right, the offense is definitely a bigger issue. Part of that's injuries with Anders Lee and Matt Barzal. They were out. They should be returning tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But yeah, they just really struggle to hold on to leads as well. Because you go back to that Avs game on Tuesday, or the Vancouver game on Thursday, where they lost 4-3. It had the lead, despite being outshot in the first two periods. But Vancouver quickly responded, got the lead, and then ultimately held on. And it really wasn't until yesterday where it looked like the Islanders played a strong 60 minutes. Well, yesterday against the Blues, I thought, was their best game in a long time. You know, it was a 2-1 win. You know, they looked good on the attack. They looked good defensively, smothered St. Louis offense, and they won in special teams.
Yeah. Well, that's a game they have to play every night.
Exactly. And it's tough, as I said, going up against teams like the Avalanche, the Caps, the Rangers, you know, who have, especially how good those offenses have been.
Well, they've got the Avalanche Islanders tomorrow night, of course, and then Thursday they're home against Columbus, and Friday they got Winnipeg.
Right.
Again, these are teams that are pretty much in a similar situation that they're in. Winnipeg a little bit better, but they have opportunities here to make hay while the sun shines, and they need, like the Knicks do, like the Nets do, a winning streak. They need to get on enough of a roll to make up some ground. 19 points is essentially 9.5 games. Now, they've played, 55, 56 games? They still have theoretically time to do it, but they have to get red hot in order to get back in the picture.
I was saying they still need more games. They're at 52 right now.
52, okay.
Rest of the
so you have 30 games left.
Yeah, rest of the league's at 55, 56. So they still got some catching up to do.
They've got 30 games left to make up those 19 points, which means they can't afford to lose anymore. No one's going to win 30 games in a row. They got to win 20 of them easily.
Yeah, and in the other 10, you at least want them to get at least 1 point out of it. You know?
Yeah,
that's tough. You know, asking to get 25.
Tampa Bay did it, but they won the cup.
Right, exactly. And in all respect, but Islanders just don't have the same talent that Tampa does, and that ability to run, besides run any of those four lines out there and get results, just mixing and matching those lines to have that same level of production. I think now Barry Trotz is having a better understanding what lines he should roll out, and that was working. I thought this week, but it's been a long struggle for the Islanders, and you got to figure it out.